The next method we look at for solving quadratic equations is the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is going to be used when we have an equation rearranged into the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And then we just identify the coefficients a and b and the constant c and plug them into the formula. There's one example here that is filled in for you to look at, but basically we rearrange our equation into standard form, identify a, b, and c, and then put them into the formula and calculate, simplifying as much as possible. As always, we go for exact answers. Let's try an example. Here is a different equation, and I'll just start by rewriting the quadratic formula for us. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, extend the square root, and that entire thing is over 2a. Looking at our equation here, let's identify a, b, and c. A is equal to 4, b is equal to negative 12, and c is equal to 9. Substituting in, we get x equals, instead of negative b, we have negative times negative 12, or positive 12, plus or minus the square root of negative 12 squared minus 4 times 9. Notice how the negative 12 is in brackets. When we square it, that will become positive. In our denominator, we have 2 times 4. It is possible to try and enter this in your calculator in one step, picking a plus sign or a minus sign. It's very likely you will make an error if you do not simplify it first. So what I would recommend is simplifying underneath the square root as a first step. In this case, you notice you actually get 144 minus 144. So writing this out in a simplified form, this will be 12 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 8. We know the square root of 0 is just 0, and it doesn't really matter if we add or subtract it. So we get x equals 12 over 8, and we reduce that into x equals 3 over 2. Notice that for this case, because we had plus or minus 0 and only have one number, we only have one unique root. It's a pretty straightforward method. There are 2 more exercises on the right side of the page. This is a good time to pause the video and try and solve both of them yourself, and then you can unpause and see how I do it. All right, for A, you may actually notice that it's possible to divide the entire equation on both sides by 2, which makes your entire equation a little bit easier. X squared plus 9x minus 36 equals 0, and it factors incredibly nicely, and it would be very fast to solve. That would be an excellent choice, but we're going to practice a little bit of quadratic formula, so we'll put it into the formula instead. So our formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and I'll identify a is 2, b is 18, c is negative 72, working with slightly larger numbers here. Substitute in our values. So negative 18 plus or minus the square root of 18 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 72, and keep an eye on the sign there, all over 2 times 2. Again, I recommend simplifying first, starting with anything underneath that radical sign that you can simplify. So we'll keep the negative 18 plus or minus. Underneath the radical sign, we're going to do 18 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 72. Notice you're adding there, so you're actually going to end up with the square root of 900 all over 4. At this point, you should check if it's possible to simplify or evaluate your square root. 900 is a perfect square, so we can take the square root and it will be 30. giving us x equals negative 18 plus or minus 30 over 4. And this essentially gives us two possible roots to find. Negative 18 plus 30 over 4 and negative 18 minus 30 over 4. Solving for each of these, and you don't really need to write them out separately. You can go straight into a solution. We get 12 over 4, which is 3, and 48 over 4, sorry, negative 48 over 4, which is negative 12. And you can see by looking at these two roots that you definitely could have factored to solve this and it would have been a bit faster. Since we have two different answers, we have two unique real roots. And again, let's go on to our last example. Slightly nicer, smaller numbers here. Let's just identify A, B, C. A is 2, B is negative 6, C is 5, and we'll just copy out the formula again. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And again, we just substitute in our values of a, b, and c. So we'll have positive 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times 2 times 5 all over 2 times 2. Again, notice we have negative 6 in brackets. I'll just highlight that. That's going to become positive 36. Keep an eye out for that. And again, let's simplify that. So we have 6 plus or minus, underneath the square root, we're going to have 36 minus 40. So that is actually negative 4 over 4. At this point, we want to notice that we actually have a square root of a negative number. That is not possible. We can't find a number times itself that will be equal to a negative. When we run into something like this, that is an indication that we actually have no real roots or no solutions. And that's it. At that point, we stop. For a question like this, you should show your steps either with the quadratic formula or whatever method you are using. But when you get to this point right here, that's where you can then recognize that there are no solutions or no real roots. And that's where we'll end it for today.